No sé si me escuchan bien. Bueno, yo soy César Rodas, yo voy a dar esta charla y yo voy a dar en inglés. O sea, yo elegí eso porque es la primera vez que doy esta charla y como que van a grabar y todo eso. Pero al final las preguntas me pueden hacer en español, en portugués, en cualquier idioma. Bueno, ya comenzamos. Okay, so in this talk I'm going to talk about micro-optimizations. As I said before, I'm from Paraguay. I decided to give this talk in English because it is the first time that I've been talking about this. I talk about MongoDB or something else, but this time I tried to do something different. What else I should say about me? I'm a PHP developer. I share most of my stuff on my GitHub account. I'm C wannabe developer. I work from home, and that's it. Well, in this talk, I'm going to talk about micro-optimizations. So, the first thing is that it's not about optimization. So, when your website is not going fast, it is usually something else. It is not PHP. And if it is PHP the problem, that's probably because you have a lot of traffic and you have a lot of money to deal with it. It can be Facebook or Wikipedia or some other company. But I'm going to show some good practices that would be nice if everyone can follow it to write code that could be CPU friendly. Okay, I'm going to talk about some common optimizations, about PHP specific optimizations and how to generate code. So that's pretty much what I'm going to talk. Okay, so as I said before, when something is not going fast, it is usually something else. It is probably your database or something else. And that is not common, that PHP is actually the problem. So that's it. So what is micro-optimization is to do what you should do, but using less resources. That should be time, CPU, memory, and so forth, and so on. And usually, if in your library, if you do not do any I/O, that's a great optimization. So I don't know if you can read these graphics, but that shows how expensive it is to read something from the disk. It says that you could do random reads about roughly 400 values, and from RAM like 42 million. So that's the huge differences that actually exist. So as I usually say, that PHP is different than anything else. I used to say that a lot because PHP works like CGI does or like HTTP does. That means that one request comes in, then you load your program, then you do something, and then everything else is just gone. So there are no code that could be used for the next request. So that could be something good or something bad. That is true if you do PHP, but if you do C and if you can write some PHP extensions, that's not true. Like the PHP is smart, like the process it stays there for the next request. It is compiled, so whether you believe it or not, PHP code is compiled into bytecode and that is executed. And it has one great feature that I haven't seen around, which is the Autoloader. That means that you want to use a class. If it doesn't exist, then one function is called, and you can do something with it. So, what is the good part that PHP is different? Is that the errors they do not propagate. So, I have one web request, something goes wrong there, and that page crashes. I have another request, and that other request that will likely to finish. So that is really cool. I've been working lately with Node.js, which is something else. Like where you write one web server, that means that if there is some mistake in there, you could just kill your whole web server. Of course, you could avoid that, but that is one really good thing. The other good thing is that there are no global states. Like you cannot save one variable into one request and read that from another request. It is not possible. Like you simulate that using some servers or database servers, but it doesn't happen. That makes it really easy to actually scale. That means that you have a lot of traffic. What do? You just create another web server and that's it. Like it is super simple. It also means that no memory leak. I should explain that. That means that if you have some error in your web page, like you allocate a lot of memory, when that request is finished, all that memory is released. So you don't have to worry about that. And another good part is that it is not like CGI, like the process, it doesn't really die. From the PHP developer point of view, it does die, but the actual process is recycled and it could handle all the requests. The bad part is that, of course, that into other projects and web servers, what is happening is that when you start your server, you load all your libraries. That means that you can just create, database connections, you load 20, 30 libraries, and it doesn't matter because that happens once. In PHP, that happens all the time. Of course, that is not the end of the world. That means that you could just use some opcode cache, and that problem will be likely solved. You could use persistent connection to your database. That is usually the most expensive thing. So you just recycle that. That also means that what these frameworks nowadays, what they are doing, like they have some configuration things in JSON, into YAML. So that things you shouldn't parse that on every request. You shouldn't do that because when you go to production, it is really unlikely that you change something for the next request. So you should do something about that. As I said earlier, like PHP is different, so therefore optimizations are different. But here I'm going to start with some common optimizations. The first is that you shouldn't use a function call if there is one language construction that actually do that. So in my example, I'm talking about instance of, that basically checks if one object is one instance of a given class. So there are two ways of actually doing that. One is using instance of, which is a language construction, or using the is a, which is a function. So what is the main difference here is that when you do one function, that means that a lot of things are happening behind. So they are creating a context variable, a lot of complex things. But if you use one language construction, so that means that that is going to be executed there right away. So that is one thing that you should know. Also, this is not the end of the world. Like there is no performance killer. But if you do that like a million times, there will be a difference of a couple of seconds. You should use empty or esets, which are also language constructions. And sometimes we might need to see a function which is our key exists. Usually I don't use that. So what is the difference there between the empty set and the our key exists? Okay. No. Well, basically with empty you check if one key exists. But that will return you false if the value is false or null or empty. Basically that. One common optimization is that native functions that are written in C, they are much faster than one function that you can do in PHP. There are like thousands of functions, so there is probably one function that already does what you try to do, so please look there. And when you're looking, I usually use the for each, that is more than enough. But some people like the for, but there are some common mistakes there. So here's the first one. Here's the mistake is that there is one, what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a big hash, which is probably 10 million values. I don't remember it exactly, 10 million. Well, what's happening here is that I'm going through a loop and I'm querying, I am executing the count function every time. So I'm basically I'm going through the loop one, then I'm asking which is this array size. It's 10 million. Then I'm going again and I'm doing that. And you can see that this is an empty loop, but this function, this chunk of code, it takes like half a second to actually run, which in terms of websites that is a lot of time. There is something wrong there. So and I'm changing this to the count, which I'm doing just once, and you see the performance drop. It runs like probably four times faster. So, and that is a lot. So of course I know that nobody is going to actually run that. But if you have a huge website and you have to do these loop like 20 million times, so you could save a couple of seconds, probably a couple of minutes, by just changing one line of code. And here is another one, which is the for each, which is actually faster. But if you want to have the key, it takes a little bit more, like double that time. As I said many times, each bit is different. So the first thing that you have to do is that you must enable your opera cache. That means there are many. I don't remember which one I'm actually using in production, but you should use one. If you don't use one, that means that you don't care about performance. Because if you don't enable that, what is happening actually is that one request comes in, then you load your PHP code, and then that is compiled, then that is executed. So that happens every time on every request. So if you do, if you enable your opera cache, which comes built in the 5.5, that compilation happens just once. So there is a lot of performance gain by just enabling that. You should avoid doing the same thing over and over. Like if you know that for every request that you have to know your configurations, so don't do that. In terms of autoloaders, if your autoloader do some sort of I/O, like reading files and directories or something like that, so it is wasting time. So, and one very important thing is that you should work with a password path. That means that you should, like the autoloader, it should give you the full path because otherwise PHP is doing some sort of magic, like to trying to locate which one is the correct file. So in terms of handling configurations, which is what most of the frameworks are actually giving now, so many of them are actually using the JSON function or any other functions. But there are a couple of issues there. The first thing is that if you are parsing that same configuration on every request, something is wrong there. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. And so here are a couple of code that how I've been doing this and what I've learned. So in this function, which is process configurations, you should assume that is a parser that will go to the configuration file and actually give me something back. But that could be in any format. I don't care. So if you call this function every time, that means that there is something wrong there. Then there are some people which are handling that by setting it into memcached, which you might think that is fine, but it is not, because what is happening is that using any database is always expensive. Because doing I/O is expensive, so you should avoid that. So memcached or Redis or any other fast database, that's fine if you are going to do database work. But if you are going to save configuration things, you shouldn't be doing that. There are another good, that this was the ugly version, this is the bad version, and this is the good version, which is that we are using the PHP, the built-in, the serialize function, which is really fast. So if you are actually saving this, what is happening here is that I'm looking if there is any process file. If there is not, then I'm loading my configuration once, then I'm saving it into some amicable format, into some friendly format. Then for the next request, then this if is going to happen. So and that is the good version. But really, if we want to be there, if we want to be in that option, then we must generate code. And I've been talking with many people lately, and when I say that, they think that this is a very complex thing, like this is something that the framework guys are actually doing, and that should be complex. And it isn't really. So what advantage we are going to have by generating PHP code is basically that if we have the PHP code, that I/O, like opening each given file or reading, that happens automatically. Like, I don't care about that. There are no serialization format, so that just goes just much faster. And it take advantage of the opcode cache. So that is going to be the best option. And fortunately, there is one function which is var export, which looks like the var function, but instead of just printing you something, it actually prints you how you would represent that into your PHP code. So this var export function that solves most of the problems. So this is basically the same code, but there are some differences. So first here, I am generating code. So my PHP code looks like the starting of a PHP file. Then I am returning whatever this function is just printing out. So what that means is that next time I could just use a require statement, which is not a function, which is a language construction, and that is going to deal with the whole I/O thing, with the optical cache. So, and the end result would be like if you type RI key value through NR. So this is what this function does. So it's really simple, and with these 8 lines of code, I am actually generating more PHP code, and the end result is just much faster. Here's another version which is development friendly, which I am actually doing this that the generated code, it must be newer than the source, than my configuration file. So starting here, you just play with it. What I'm actually looking here is that if I change something into my configuration files, and just there that it should rebuild it. It's basically that. So by generating code, we are actually just taking a lot of our advantage over the downside of using PHP. That means that the problem is that all the libraries, knowledge that you probably have about libraries and paths, they are all gone. So starting with the PHP 5 something, I don't remember, it came with a built-in feature which is Autoloaders, which is basically you just call one class, and if it doesn't exist, it will just go and look there. So that is really great. That is probably the best feature that PHP added in the last 10 years. So I really love it. So apparently the framework, so they are a bunch of autoloaders there. I been looking into the Symfony autoloader. It looks really good. I don't like some few things there. For instance, I think it does a lot of path things, and it goes trying new things, and things that doesn't make any sense in a production environment where things are not going to change so often. So I wrote my own autoloader, which is slightly different. It is a library, but it is also a command line util. And basically, you just say, I have all my files here, just build me one autoloader. I don't care about anything, just go ahead and just discover things. I wrote it, and I don't know, it took me some time, like 2 or 3 weeks. It generates code, so that means that I don't have to follow any standards of how I'm naming my classes, namespace. It doesn't matter. Like they should be in one directory, and that's it. It also comes with some nice features, like it is case insensitive. Like it doesn't matter. Like if you have one class which is full bar all in uppercase, it doesn't matter. The problem that I found afterwards in my work, back at that time, I was working with a Symfony 2 framework, was that my autoloader, it was a huge file. It has like 1 megabyte, so that fitted all purpose. So that was huge. So I just split that into namespaces. So that was much faster. And then when I was done there, I saw what can I do to just make it faster or smarter. Then I realized one pattern is that if you need to load one object, one class, which has like 3 interfaces and 2 parent classes, that means that Autoloader function that will be called like 6 times. So it didn't make any sense. So what I have done is that I added some sort of dependency that one class, like it depends on these other 6 classes. So I have implemented that. So when you need one class, your autoloader is going to be called once, not 6 or 7 times. So and I was measuring that, and I saved quite a lot of time, like 15 milliseconds on average. That was something. And the good thing is that a couple of weeks ago, I just add this feature, which means that you could add this chunk of code into your composer, and that will replace your autoloader for something which is actually production friendly. I've been talking about how to generate code, like what I've been doing, and here's how I do it. How I started with it, I started like 2010. I was hired by one Spanish site, which is kind of big. It's miami.net, and they wanted to have one template engine. So I said that I could write one, and I did so. But the problem was that what I wrote, it wasn't good. So I added some features to generate code, and the performance impact was minimum. Like they were working before my changes with free servers and after my changes with free servers. So that was something good. So here are a couple of things that I actually learned. Is that when you generate code, it actually looks like a website. It is much better if you split it into layers. So the first layer is the whole logic thing, and so I put that into PHP. But in terms of code, I like to work with views. So I treat my code template as simple views. So I could just use any template engine. I use my own libraries, but I could easily just switch to another library, and everything is going to actually work. So if you want to generate code, and if you want that generation be development friendly, that means that when you are developing something, that you don't have to go and delete something when you actually change something. So this function, when you just file and time, is actually really handy. Here are 2 other projects where I am generating code. In the newest one is Active 2, which is basically one Active layer. But the whole mapping things, the whole events, like I want to execute this function before this event record is saved, I put all that thing into one generated file, so I don't do any checkings at runtime. So if you avoid doing repetitive things on runtime, that is a huge optimization. And the other library is dispatcher, which you just tell it this function, I want to this be accessible through these patterns, through this given route. I'm going to talk a little bit about these projects. All my projects, they are open source, they are totally free. You just go and use it. You don't have to pay me anything. So in this particular project, to make things easier, like for developers, I'm using the annotations, which is something that does not exist in PHP, like such thing, like some language thing. So I wrote my parser, And that added a lot of overhead, like actually going, reading, parsing, all those things. But then that whole overhead, that just happened once, which is when your routers are changed. So that makes sense, I guess. Like if the first request, if that takes like 300 milliseconds, and just that, and afterwards just a couple of microseconds, so that makes sense. So it does support like filters and events, like before doing so pre-routing, please execute these given functions. One other thing that when I was designing this, I said that there has to be one way of making this smart. So the first thing is that the patterns, the routers, doesn't support regular expressions, so that takes a lot of complexity. And instead, I provided the colors. So I'm going to explain what that means. And one other thing when I really optimized it was that I had a lot of rows, say like 5 or 6. So when one request comes in, I try to just discard them as soon as possible. How do I do that? If there is one pattern that has like 5 parts, and my current request has 2, so I just discard that because it doesn't even make sense. What I've been looking around one of these REST frameworks in PHP is that they put all those rows into one loop and they go trying one by one. And that doesn't even make sense most of the time. So this is what I've been doing. This is foo, which is one static part, and then bar, which is a variable which holds no meaning, but this is a filter, which is a callback function, which is going to return true or false. So I took all the complexity and I just added one callback function. So basically, this is what I do most of the day or my part time. I just try to think one problem and how to solve it just faster. I think that is all. A couple of advice that if you write a library and you share it, like it should be like CPU friendly. Like I've been just profiling a couple of frameworks, and the amount of time that we spend just loading things and filters and callbacks and blah blah blah, that was insane. And the problem I believe begins when they port something which is actually working into some other technology like Java or Python, where it doesn't make sense because all the library are loaded at the beginning of your application. Then don't be afraid of just improving the wheel. So if there are other libraries, but if you can make it better, just go ahead and make it better. Don't go crazy about micro-optimization if it isn't the right time. That means that if you are working into your blog, so don't go and optimize WordPress. That is not going to help. So actually, if you are sharing your libraries or things like that, please write good code. Any questions? I think that was so quick.